Hey everyone, welcome back. Everyone loves smooth scroll animations. They just make a website feel so much more alive. You've probably seen tutorials showing how to do this all in Pure CSS. But here's the thing, it only works in modern browsers. So in this video, I'll show you how to get the same cinematic scroll effect using both CSS only and a tiny JavaScript fallback, less than 10 lines of code, and it works everywhere. Let's jump in.
All right, let's start with the layout. There's no animation yet, this is just the static structure. At the top, we have a simple heading. It takes up the full viewport height, so when we scroll down, it nicely reveals the content below. Then we have a container called View, which holds all our blocks. Each block is just a square or rectangle. We'll have a bunch of them to make the scrolling effect more interesting.
Now let's make the blocks a bit more interesting. We give each one a different width and height using all those nth child rules. This creates some variety, so the grid feels more dynamic and less repetitive, more natural to the eye. Looks nice already, but nothing moves yet.
All right, now that we have our static layout, let's bring these blocks to life with some scroll animation. We start by defining a simple keyframes called appear.
Starting state, opacity equals 0. The block is completely transparent at the beginning. Translate y equals 150 pixels, so it comes in with a vertical motion. Scale equals 0. The block is scaled down to 0, giving it that growing into view effect. Visually, it looks like the block rises and grows out of nowhere.
Ending state. Opacity 1. The block becomes fully visible. Translate y 0. The block returns to its normal vertical position. Scale 1. The block scales up to its original size. The result is a smooth cinematic entrance. The block fades in, rises, and grows naturally into place.
At this point, you won't see anything happen on the page yet. That's because we've only defined the animation. We haven't actually applied it to any of the blocks.
Now that we have our keyframes appear, let's actually make the blocks animate. We add the following CSS to all block elements. Animation, appear, linear. This tells each block to use our appear keyframes with a smooth, linear motion. Animation timeline view, and here's the cool part. This connects the animation to the scroll position inside the view container. Animation range. Entry 0%, cover 40%. This defines when the animation starts and ends as the block enters the viewport. Basically, it starts as soon as the block appears and finishes after about 40% of the container is scrolled. Now, if you scroll the page, voila! Each block pops into view with that smooth, cinematic motion. It's amazing how just a few lines of CSS can create this dynamic, scroll-linked effect. No JavaScript needed.
Now, this looks great, but there's one problem. Animation timeline view is still an experimental feature, and right now it only works in modern browsers. So next, I'll show you how to recreate the exact same scroll effect using just a few lines of JavaScript and make it work everywhere.
All right, let's update our project to make the scroll animation work everywhere, not just in modern browsers. First, let's fix the page title so it matches what we're doing now.
Now we can remove the CSS scroll animation from before. That includes the keyframes appear block and the animation properties we had inside block. We won't need animation timeline anymore because we'll handle all of that with JavaScript.
Next, let's set the initial state of each block manually in CSS. So now, every block starts invisible, pushed down a bit, and slightly scaled down. The transition makes sure that when we change these properties, it'll animate smoothly.
Then, we'll define what happens when a block becomes visible. This is basically the same visual effect we had before. Fade in, move up, and scale to normal size. But this time, instead of using CSS scroll timelines, we'll trigger this with a small bit of JavaScript.
Right now, if you open the page, everything looks empty.
That's because all the blocks are hidden by default. But we're about to change that with just a few lines of JavaScript.
We start by selecting all the blocks.
Next, we'll create something called an intersection observer. It's a built-in browser API that lets us detect when an element enters or leaves the viewport, basically when it becomes visible on screen. Here, we are creating a new observer and passing it a callback function. That function runs every time one of our blocks intersects with the viewport.
Inside the callback, we loop through all the entries the observer gives us.
Then, for each block, we check if it's actually visible. So when the block scrolls into view, we add the visible class, and it fades and scales into place. When it scrolls out of view, we remove that class so the effect can repeat if you scroll back up. Finally, we close out the observer setup and define a small configuration object. This means the animation triggers when 20% of the block is visible on screen. Not right away, but just as it starts to appear.
Finally, we need to tell the observer which elements to watch. We do that by looping through all our blocks and calling observe on each one.
And that's it. Now when you scroll the page, each block will fade in, move up, and scale smoothly into place as it enters the viewport. It works in almost all browsers. With just a few lines of JavaScript and a little CSS, we've recreated the cinematic scroll animation everywhere. If you like this kind of clean, minimal motion design, drop a like. It helps a lot. And subscribe for more front-end motion tips. Thanks for watching.